Hello, 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 listeners. How are you this fine, lovely December week? I'm just going to go straight in and talk about gratitude. Something that I like to start the show with, as you are aware. So I'm really grateful at the moment for low-cost supermarkets. I'm just putting it out there because we were all aware that we're living in really challenging times of fuel poverty, amongst other challenges for individuals, for families, and I don't know about you, but I mean it's a struggle no matter where you sit, I think, but particularly for people on low incomes, and people on benefits and things, and people with children. The struggle is really high. And no one should be in a position where they have to choose food over fuel, and transport and those kinds of really difficult decisions. But that's where we are. So I'm thinking of you all out there and your struggles. And I won't mention any low cost supermarkets, and they're not the savior of they're not the solution to the problem, but they certainly help. And I'm particularly grateful to be able to feed myself and who I need to feed in these difficult times, even when it's not always easy. So that's what I'm starting with today. So I hope you're all well out there. A bit of an unusual show today on UK Health Radio, because I am the guest of the week. So lots of I get lots of questions and lots of people asking me about working as a therapist with young people, children and young people and young adults, who are autistic, ADHD, have OCD, or in some way neurodivergent, diagnosed or not. And also I get questions about the neurotypical children and adults I work with as well. So I thought, why not do a show that goes through some of the frequently asked questions that I get, and so I can give you a bit more information on how Elf Child Therapy, which is my limited company, work with people who are neurodivergent. And also, if you're out there listening and you're a therapist and you would like to work with children and young people, you can also come and talk to me about that, because I do run some training. Okay, so before I get into that, I'm really pleased to announce that UK Health Radio have got themselves onto all of the major podcast platforms. So the reach has extended from the 52 countries that were tuning in to UK Health Radio, across many, many more, and very, very, many more people who might not tune into radio, but actually like to listen on Apple or Spotify or other major platforms. So well done for the team at UK Health Radio for organising that. So you can now tune in to us on any of those platforms. If you go to any of your favourite podcast platforms and search for UK Health Radio, all of the shows will be available on there. So if you've missed any, that's okay, because they'll be coming out in different order, the ones that have already been out, and all the future shows will be there too. So that's a really, really good message for the week. So before I get into the frequently asked questions, I'm going to play some music, and I'm feeling a little bit nostalgic today. So I'm going to go back to my youth a little bit and play a little bit of Roxy music. Welcome back, listeners. You're listening to Autistic Voices on UK Health Radio. So I'm going to start with some people find me on social media and contact me or by email and say, so Evalynne, how do you get guests for the show, and how do people get on the show? So I'll start with that one. This show is open to all. So although it's called Autistic Voices, you don't have to be autistic to be interviewed for the show. The show is about discussing neurodivergence. And whether you are someone who's diagnosed neurodivergent yourself, or you're someone who is undiagnosed, but you think you might be neurodivergent, or you know somebody who is, or you're part of a family or a group of close-knit people who you work with, it doesn't matter. If you're somebody who represents neurodivergence in the workplace, I've talked to quite a few guests about that. If you're somebody who is neurotypical, but you want to come on and talk about your views on neurodivergence or your experience of others, that's absolutely fine too. The show's open to all. So how do you get on the show? Well, first of all, you need to contact me and let me know. You can either find me on LinkedIn, Evalynne Charmer, and it's EVALYNNE Charmer, or you can email me, which is Evalynne, EVALYNNE, at childhypnotherapyinstitute.com. And I'm just pausing because I'm thinking, is it com or co.uk? I'll change it if I need to. Okay, so you can email me. Now, the process is that I tend to meet people first on Zoom for a quick chat, nothing recorded, just to talk about what you might want to talk about and how the show works. But basically, I record the show on Zoom. It takes about 45 minutes to an hour to do our interview. In our initial chats, we probably think about what you want to talk about and how best to get across what you want to say. And then I might email you some questions so you can prepare. And then we do the interview. And then once the interview is edited into the show with the music and the intro and the outro and all those bits and the ads, I send it to you for your final approval before we go to air. So you do have control all the way through. If there's something you say, oh, I didn't mean to say it like that, or can you take that bit out or whatever, then we can do that before it goes to air. So you do have, as I say, control of the situation. And if you change your mind and say, do you know what, I thought I wanted to do it, now I've heard it, I don't want to do it, that's fine too. So that's how you get on the show. If you've got anything to say which is obviously of concern or harmful to anybody or is abusive or racist or anything like that, obviously you wouldn't get on the show. But so far, so good. All you lovely people coming forward have been absolutely ace, and I've had nothing but joy meeting you all going forward. Okay, so that's about the show. Some of the frequently asked questions then I get about working therapeutically, specifically with neurodivergent children and young adults, are why do neurodivergent children and young adults need therapy? And sometimes people have got quite passionate about this, thinking that the therapy is about the neurodivergence. Well, I can clear that up straight away and tell you it's not. I'm in no way somebody who believes that neurodivergence is a problem to be solved or a deficit to be worked on, or that it's a problem at all. And the way I see it is that a lot of neurodivergent children, young people, really need support to help with getting in touch with who they are and living authentically in a neurotypical world in a way that makes them feel comfortable. So that's the kind of crux of it. I don't approach people and say, you're neurodivergent and therefore you need therapy. But as a result of being neurodivergent, a lot of children, young people really struggle with a number and variety of issues which they need support with in order to be able to become happier, basically, and develop what I call mental wealth and self-esteem. So that's what that's about. It's about self-acceptance, self-identity, awareness, and being able to overcome issues that might be holding them back from enjoying life and being involved in life in ways that they want to be, and being able to be out in the world unmasked as much as they can be and as much as they want to be, and feel completely secure and comfortable with that. So a lot of stuff goes into that. That's not a straightforward issue, is it? So I guess one of the things I get asked is, do you work to try to alter someone's neurodivergent profile or makeup? And I say, no, why would I want to do that? I'm also autistic myself. I was diagnosed with Asperger's before the diagnosis criteria changed somewhat. So I'm now just known as autistic. And I'm proud to be. And I see a lot of strengths in that. There are challenges, and I'm not going to pretend that it's all plain sailing or happy all of the time, because it's not. There are challenges. And my role as a therapist is to help neurodivergent people to overcome some of those challenges and to be able to really work with their strengths and their wonderful qualities as well, and to feel good about that. So that's kind of what I do. Okay, I'm interested in helping people reach their potential, basically. And there are a lot of things that hold us back from that, aren't there? So if you're out there listening, and if you want to talk to me about this off air, I do offer a free half-hour consultation, and I work on Zoom. One of the reasons for that is so I can be reached from wherever you are. We've got no boundaries now between areas, countries, because we've got Zoom and other, video or talk platforms or chat platforms that mean we're connected by the web. And so it's great because I can talk to you wherever you are about whatever's going on. And the reason I do a half-hour consultation is sometimes people just need a little bit of advice and support. Sometimes people just need a bit of steering in the right direction. And other times people want to talk through an issue to decide whether they or their child or young person or young adult wants and needs to have any therapy. So there are lots of reasons for using that half an hour, and it's open to all. So feel free to do that. Get in touch with me and I can send you a link to my calendar if that's something that would be useful to you. Okay. Moving on. So, talking about Zoom and using video, sometimes people say to me, why do you choose to do therapy over a video link? So you're not in the room, it's not face to face with somebody. So apart from the fact that means that I can reach more of you in more areas and there's no barriers to that, what I've found is I have worked face to face for many, many years. I qualified as a therapist in 2002 or 3, at the end of 2002, beginning of 2003. And I have worked with people face to face the majority of the time. What I've found working online is particularly for people who are experiencing high levels of anxiety, low self-esteem, low confidence, stress, depression, and the reasons that they generally start therapy for, it's a much safer environment to access therapy in. It's safer in that they feel they can do it from their bedroom. They don't have to be in a clinical setting or go somewhere and be on time and have the stress and anxiety of having to do that and relying on getting there in the car or walking somewhere or getting a bus or whatever. So it reduces all the sort of pre-session anxiety that can come with these types of appointments. It also means they can access it whether they're in school, in college, or at home. And I find that reducing those levels of anxiety is a really good starting point for building trust and rapport and being able to switch off the kind of fight or flight center of the brain, which when we all know, when we're in survival mode and we're in fight or flight or freeze, it's really hard to talk things through rationally or to access our wisdom, our inner wisdom, and do anything other than be in survival mode. So if somebody's starting therapy from that stance because they've had a really anxious time before they get even to the session, then I think it can take a good, a lot of the session time can be taken up by bringing that anxiety down. So for me, it's more time efficient for people as well, because they don't have to spend all of that time doing that. Another thing that children and young people, and in particular, feedback to me is that they like the control of accessing counselling in a place they feel safe and being able to decide whether they want to be seen or not. So It works whether their camera is on or their camera is off. I work with a number of children who choose not to communicate verbally. And there's a chat box, so you can text type. And there are other ways that they can access me, even if they can just hear me, which can be very therapeutic without the anxiety of feeling they have to be seen or heard. They can also end the session. And that no one's ever done that. But I always give them the option, because I think actually if somebody's uncomfortable, they should have the option to be able to end the session. Now, if a young person was sitting in a clinical setting with a professional in a therapy session, can you imagine how difficult that would be to articulate, I want to leave now, or I'm going to leave now, or just getting up and leaving? It's a really difficult thing to do. There's, I feel as though there's a bit of a power imbalance. Equally, I have worked in people's homes and schools. And again, there's a power imbalance because they feel like they can't tell you to leave. So it takes away all of that. And I think it creates a more level playing field of, we're here together, we're working collaboratively, we're working on video, but you can choose all of these options of how you communicate, whether you communicate, and what you engage in. And also, it's really much easier for me to switch through different activities and different interventions online very quickly than it is to take, the number of boxes or bags I'd have to take with me to be able to do the same in a face-to-face setting. So another thing I like to give people is choices. And if I propose activities that I think are going to be valuable for that person, but if they are in a different headspace, or they want to talk about something different, or they don't like the activity, I've always got another, endless number of tools and resources that I can use at the tip of my fingers that can be more interactive and more engaging for somebody. So they're the basics. That's the reasons why I choose to work on Zoom. And I find that because of all of those choices, because of all of those controls that someone has, and that there's a clear time frame on them choosing to leave or not at any point, it helps people feel more safe and comfortable to get into therapy. And that's what it's all about for me. Yeah. So I hope I've answered a couple of questions there. I'm going to come back to a few more after we listen to a bit more music. So I don't know about you. I'm in the mood for something a bit lively. So I'm going to play another blast from the past for me. So if you're over a certain age, you'll probably remember them. And if you're not, you probably won't. But I hope you enjoy it anyway. Let's listen to a bit of Aztec Camera. Welcome back, listeners. You're listening to Evalynne Charmer on Autistic Voices. You might be listening to us on one of the major podcast platforms, or you might be listening to us on the UK Health Radio website, or you might be listening live. So however you're listening, I really hope you're enjoying the show. Bit of an unusual one if you've just tuned in, because my guest of the week is me. I was explaining at the top of the show that I get asked a lot of questions about therapy. For children and young people, and neurodivergent people in particular. And I've been just going through some of the frequently asked questions I get, so that you can get a better understanding of what therapy is and how it can work for neurodivergent people. I'm always happy to talk through. So if you want to contact me, please do. And I'll always talk through things off show. Okay, so one of the questions I get asked then is, what do people need support with? What do people come to therapy for, particularly autistic young people or young people who are diagnosed with a neurodivergence of some kind? And I would say, well, I think most people experience the same things, whether they're neurotypical or neurodivergent. But with the added layer of being neurodivergent, some of these things can be harder to work through. But these are the things that I've experienced over the years that people, especially children and young people and young adults, need help with, who come to me. So anxiety, top of the list, no matter what the cause, and there's loads of reasons for anxiety. The majority of people who come to me are experiencing really high anxiety. And that can manifest in so many ways. And if you're out there and you're someone who experiences anxiety, you'll know exactly what I mean. Anxiety is different for everyone, but basically it's a survival mechanism which keeps us in that fear-based fight, flight, freeze mode for longer than we need to be. And it perpetuates itself. So if somebody's anxious about something, they're more likely to get then preemptive anxiety about it the next time. And anxiety can be soul destroying and so bad for our health, physically, mentally, emotionally, everything. And it can be debilitating for people. And people experience anxiety on a scale of, fairly low anxiety to absolutely crippling and debilitating anxiety, and anything in between. And often what I find, and I don't know if this resonates with anyone out there, but what I find is that people often feel really guilty about feeling anxious, like it's a really bad thing that they shouldn't be doing. And they talk about it in a kind of, like they blame themselves, like, oh, I'm feeling really anxious and I shouldn't be, and blah, 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 blah. So one of the things that I do work with people a lot is helping, to reduce anxiety, but also to understand it and to really get to grips with what it is, why it is, and how to develop and manage it with coping strategies. And alongside anxiety, a lot of people come who are experiencing very high levels of stress and stress responses to things, which feeds in. It's that anxiety and stress are very closely linked, as I'm sure you're aware. Something else that comes to me quite a lot is people who really struggle or feel like they're becoming really fed up with OCD. And OCD being a symptom of stress and anxiety, and people often say, well, it's controlling me and I need to control it, or it's controlling our family. So OCD is something I work with a lot for young people who are neurodivergent. And I don't believe in just treating symptoms. OCD is a symptom of inner stress. So if somebody's experiencing OCD, I do have a lot of work that I can do with them around challenging the OCD. I've got a workbook I use from the South London and Maudsley Foundation Trust, which is wonderful, by Amita Jassi, a CBT workbook for young people with autism to challenge OCD, and that's brilliant. But I find that if you treat the symptoms of something and you don't actually look at the underlying causes, that stress and anxiety will pop up in another way. So you might manage someone's OCD and they might develop a tic or other distressing. I mean, I'm not saying tics are distressing, but they might develop something that is distressing to them. That because OCD isn't distressing unless it becomes something that overrules you. It's the same with a tic. A tic isn't distressing unless it overrules you and stops you from living your life and erase, it erodes your self-esteem and those sorts of things. So, but I do believe that stress, anxiety, poor mental health, low mood, all of those things will come out in different ways. And OCD and tics very often are symptoms of inner stress and anxiety. So even if people come to me with those kinds of symptoms, I will help them to address the underlying causes of the stress and anxiety alongside. Okay. All of this stuff and life experiences often people come with a really damaged sense of self. So, not really accepting me for me, and what I am is wrong. I'm not like other people. I'm not good enough. Those kinds of inner voices telling you these things. And so I also work with people on really developing their sense of self in a realistic way, which is strengths-based, whilst also helping people to understand the things they find more difficult. One thing I find quite often comes up is a real sense of perfectionism or fear of making mistakes. There's a word for a fear of making mistakes is what it is. And if it develops into a really phobic kind of set of symptoms, it becomes something called atelophobia, which I find interesting. ATELO phobia. And that's a diagnosed phobia. But even if it's not diagnosed, a lot of young people who I speak to who are autistic or ADHD or multiple, set of neurodivergencies, often really do struggle with the idea of getting things wrong or not getting it right or making big mistakes or being shown up to not have got it right. And they're really consumed by that, and that people will think negatively about them, and they will think negatively about themselves if they don't achieve, and a lot of sort of high self-expectation. So I do quite a lot of work around that too. Some people get so overwhelmed with that they become inert and unable to invest in their daily lives and then being out in the community and taking a valuable role in society because they're so consumed with getting things wrong. Other things people come for are, and also alongside, because often people come with all of these things, they're not often just siloed on their own, is difficulty with relationships and friendships and understanding people's motives and what people mean and trying to work out what people mean and how to develop friendships that are either working on one level and not getting any deeper, or finding it really difficult to find where you fit as a young person in your peer groups, and understanding those kinds of all the social nuances that go on and can happen. I call it social engineering, being able to really navigate through what is a really complex system. And we're living in a world of social media, aren't we? So navigating those social systems carries on continually, 24/7. There's no escape from it. And that's something that comes up a lot, is helping people to really develop healthy relationships and friendships, understand their place in it all, what they value and need from people, what they've got to offer, and how it all works, and being able to really understand or try to understand themselves more whilst trying to understand others. And that's a lifelong process we all experience anyway, because you can never be in anyone else's head or mind but your own. So, there's a lot of navigating to do there. Processing, that comes up a lot. Processing things that happen, processing things that might happen, processing transitions and change, processing emotions, feelings, processing events. There's a lot of processing of sensory experiences that people need to do. So sometimes just having a safe space to come and just talk things through. And I have one young person who I won't name, who finds the sessions useful just in being able to talk aloud, like getting the thoughts out so that you can start to look at them externally a bit more objectively, and start to process them, put them all back together in your head. Another thing that I work with is helping people just on a executive functioning level, just being able to plan, organise, prioritise, work out time management, just on a really practical note, being able to think through action planning, how do I get from here to there? How do I make this happen? How does that happen? I call it reverse engineering. I like this word engineering because it's all about constructing things, isn't it? From an idea to fruition. So even if it's how do I get to become more independent, which is a great big thing to reverse engineer, down to I want to meet up with a friend and go for a pizza, working out the steps and what needs to happen and who needs to be involved in that, and what sort of skills you might need to develop or that you've already got that you can use to put these things in place and make things happen. Sometimes that's really helpful for people. So that's a kind of snapshot, if you like, of the types of things that people come with. There are others, there are things like IBS and bedwetting and various other things that come. But I guess really for me, most of it comes down to anxiety and stress, even when it is about bedwetting and IBS. So, there are a number of things that people come for. Sleep issues. What does, when I come, and then that comes down to usually, often, if there isn't a medical reason for a sleep disorder or anything, it can come down to stress and anxiety, and low self-esteem and self-worth. So they often all come down to the same things. So I hope that's answered that question as to what people need help with. And it's not about we need to change somebody because they are neurodivergent. This is about helping people to develop skills that help them be themselves in the world in a more authentic way and feel generally happier and mentally wealthier. Okay. I'm going to have another break now because it's really weird, I'm sure, just listening to one person talking when you're used to me interviewing someone else. But I think it's really important that we cover these topics today on a health show. And we haven't really done that over the last few months that Autistic Voices has been on. So let's have a break for some more music. I'm a big fan of Luther Vandross, and so we're going to give him a little listen. Welcome back, listeners. I hope you enjoyed a bit of Luther Vandross or went to make yourself a cup of tea if it's not your, cup of tea. Thank you for listening to Autistic Voices. The autistic voice of the week is me, and I've been talking all about Ed Elf Child Therapy Limited, the therapy clinic that I run. I've got to say, actually, the day this show is coming out, I will be in Leeds receiving a Yorkshire Prestige Award for Ed Elf Child Therapy Limited. I'm really proud of this. And I've won Children's Holistic Therapy Clinic of the Year 2022-2023. So I'll be going to receive my award, get a photo hopefully taken and all of that sort of thing. But what I am incredibly proud of is the work that all of the children and young people and young adults I've worked with have put in to make that award happen, really. Because if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be Holistic Children's Therapy Clinic of the Year. I'd just be me, wouldn't I? And actually, therapy is a collaboration that is done between people. It's not done to, it's done with. And so for all of you out there, if you've been one of my precious young people, or you've been one of my precious adult people over the last few years, I just want to say big thank you for what you've done and your part that you've played in developing Ed Elf Child Therapy Limited into what it's growing into. From a little acorn, mighty oaks we may grow. So just wanted to mention that because it's something that I think is really, really lovely and a real reward for all of those people, including me and any future therapists who come to work alongside me. I have some people coming on board who are being trained through the Child Hypnotherapy Institute, which is the training arm of Ed Elf. And I can't wait because that means widening the reach again across various regions over the coming couple of years. So look out for that. Okay. A next frequently asked question then. This is about hypnosis in particular. So lots of people worry about hypnosis and hypnotherapy, and about hypnotherapy with children, and about hypnosis as a, is it a control mechanism, and can it take over someone's mind, and can it make someone do things or change things or mess with their brain, and all of those. And I think they're very valid questions. And when I trained in early 2000s in hypnotherapy, I probably would have been as wary as well, because my only experience of hypnosis was stage hypnosis, which I had experienced and hated and scared and feared enormously. But also, we see like Darren Brown using hypnosis and things like this. So we think of it as something that is done to someone else. That means that they relinquish control of their own brain or their own mind in some way. When you experience it, though, it's not like that at all. So stage hypnosis and hypnosis for therapy are very different. Hypnotherapy is a really relaxing technique which helps people to get into what's called theta brainwaves, which is your brain works on different waves, and when you're feeling really relaxed, and not going to sleep, but feeling really, really relaxed, and your conscious brain is just relaxed and doing something else. So you're a bit like, you might go for a walk, but you don't remember everything that you saw along the way, because your subconscious mind was taking you on the walk while your conscious mind was probably thinking about something else. If you're someone who drives a car or a bike or a motorbike, when you're driving somewhere, your brain's working on theta, because you're conscious of what you're doing, but you're able to then, if you're someone who's driven for a while anyway, and you're not just learning, you're not thinking about everything you're doing. It's become a subconscious thing, hasn't it? It's become part of you. So really, hypnosis is about helping someone's brain to switch down into theta. And when you're in theta, your subconscious mind, which is where all of your fears and beliefs and experiences are kind of stored like a library, is more open to listening to positive suggestions that can help you change unhealthy or unhelpful thoughts, feelings and behaviors. So it's very much, again, a collaborative thing. I'll give you an example. A very young child I was working with was a brilliant gymnast, and she had her very first accident. She didn't harm herself. No one was harmed, but she'd shocked herself that she had failed or, made an imperfect move, and she'd ended up falling. And not surprisingly, listeners, that absolutely knocked her confidence hugely. And she was very scared to go back onto that piece of equipment. And yet she really, I see it as kind of the mind and the soul. So her mind was saying, this is dangerous. This can go wrong. And her soul was saying, but I love being a gymnast and it's what I want to do. So she was in conflict with herself. Do you understand? And I worked with her and her mom, and she was very much on board, this little girl, and did some CBT, which is cognitive behavior therapy, which helped to think about her thoughts about what happened and her feelings about what happened and how it was affecting now her behaviors, and how she was more scared now and how that was manifesting for her. And we also had some CBT around imagining that fear as a character that had just popped up in her life, and she could face it and tell it to go away if she wanted to. And we created some really nice hypnosis where she chose a place to go to in her brain, in her mind, where she felt really happy and really safe and comfortable. She chose Disneyland. So when I put her into theta waves by relaxing her, reducing her breathing, helping her to get into a nice relaxed state of mind, and taking her mind back to a place, in her case Disneyland, where she felt really safe and happy and really comfortable and confident, and then telling her subconscious brain that she was able to overcome her fears and that she was a good gymnast It was okay to make mistakes, that she can overcome that, and she can tell the fear to go away and continue her journey as she wants to into, with her gymnastics. And of course that worked for her. Amazing. So that's just a little example of how hypnotherapy can really help. And another thing it can do is simply just reduce anxiety by taking someone into a relaxed state of mind. Now, not everyone likes to be hypnotized or wants to do that, and not everyone feels like it works for them, and that's fine too. It's just another tool in the bag. So as a pediatric hypnotherapist, it's something I will use if it's appropriate, if it's agreed, if the child consents, if the adult parent responsible for the child consents. And I'll also always do a kind of taster session, and someone can say, that worked for me brilliantly, I loved it, or don't think that was going to work for me, and that's fine too. So I just want to put that out there, that it's another tool in the bag. Okay, so I hope that answers some questions about hypnosis and control. The other thing to say is nobody has the power to control your brain. Okay, your brain has got its own survival mechanism, which is why you go into anxiety and stress in the first place, because you've got your own early warning system. So if anyone hypnotizes you and tells you to do something that's against your own desires and needs and wants and beliefs, you will not do that. Also, if you are hypnotized and a fire alarm goes off, you'll get up and go out. You will still respond to your child if it wakes up, etc. So there's a lot of misunderstandings and misconceptions about hypnosis. It's not that much of a powerful tool as people are expecting. And I think we see movies and films and animations that display hypnosis as something which is a mind control thing. And I'm telling you, as a fully insured, fully qualified, fully regulated hypnotherapist, it absolutely is not. Okay. So what other strategies might I use to help people with anxiety and stress and identity and everything? So I use a combination of things. I'm a big believer in strength-based approaches, which means thinking about developing people's strengths and skill sets, and also bringing their awareness to what their strengths and skills are. Very solution focused, which is about thinking about how to, how life will be when the problem is solved, really. What's life going to be like? And also using things like zones of regulation you might have heard about, protective behaviors, which is about personal safety awareness and being able to articulate, to understand your own early warning system that tells you when there's danger or risk, and being able to manage that. And also a combination of that with cognitive behavior therapy. Now, again, if you want to talk to me about any of those things, please come and ask me. Okay, I've got one more question to answer before the end of the show. So people say, how do you do it? How do you do it? What do you do? What do you actually do? Now, over the years, I've developed a kind of system of working that I stick to pretty much. And I do work within this in terms of I'm very fluid and very intuitive and instinctive with people. So I don't follow a set program, but I try to cover a variety of areas that people often need support with. I've developed a program called Congruent Me. And congruent, for those that don't know, just means authentic. So Congruent Me is about developing people to be authentic and to develop self-acceptance and self-love, really. So the congruent stands for, the C is about community. We all need to know our place in community. We all need to know that we're worth something, we have value, and that we are, where we are within our peer group and things like that. So I do lots of work around that. O is for ownership and accountability. So being able to separate what is your own beliefs and your own thoughts and your own feelings from those that have been given to you by others, and being able to own how you feel and be able to state it and stand in your power, and take responsibility for yourself, in terms of that, in terms of saying, I need these needs being met, and I'm able to now say them. So I do a lot of work around that. depending on the age of the young person, of course. The N in Congruent Me stands for networks of support. So being able to really work with someone to think about what do they need from leaders? Leaders being parents, carers, professionals, and also how to sort of really work out friend from foe, and what is it that makes somebody in your network somebody you want in your network, and why. Which leads into working on goals and solutions for problems that arise. Developing healthy relationships. So the R stands for relationships. Look, I help people to look at their values and, work out what their values are. And so how to seek that in others, and how to know when somebody's not somebody who's adding that value to your life and in tune with you, and how to be able to be a good friend as well, and to be able to do that for others. The U is about understanding, and sometimes children, young people have subconsciously taken on board the idea that being neurodivergent is wrong, or there's something bad about it, or they are deficit in some way, or they are not good enough, or not the same as. And so I do some work with children and people about that self-awareness and understanding of themselves, which helps them say, oh, okay, so I get that. I understand more about what my strengths are, and I understand more about what my challenges are and what my needs are, and how to get them met, and how to ask for them to be met. Which leads into the E, emotional literacy and empowerment, being able to express what you need, and also who you are, how you're feeling. And sometimes it's really hard to do that. So I do lots of work around being able to get in touch with feelings and emotions, and being able to articulate them. And last but not least, T for building trust and rapport. So that's being able to trust yourself, trust your own inner person, and your own inner voice, and your own inner feelings, and being able to articulate them, but then being able to build up trusting relationships with people who can support you to develop and grow and be able to get your needs met. And all in all, that congruent me kind of model, whether I work with all of those things or partly work with some of those things, is something that I find really helps somebody on a holistic way, which is looking at all the aspects of their life. And if you do that with someone in a non-judgmental, supportive, caring, loving way, I find that people find self-acceptance, self-awareness, self-love, and are able to be in the world in a more authentic, congruent way. And that is the crux of the work of Ed Elf, and why I've won Children's Holistic Therapy Clinic of the Year, I guess. Okay, I think that's it from me. I hope that you've enjoyed listening to all of that, and please like, share, whatever you can do to, or subscribe to the podcast, tell other people about it. And if you want to get in touch with me to discuss anything that I've talked about on the show today, including coming on the show yourselves, if you want to talk about a topic, then please get in touch with me. I'm just going to clarify that email address I gave you at the top of the show, in case I've got that wrong. Let's see. It is Evalynne, EVALYNNE, at childhypnotherapyinstitute.com. And I'll see you when I see you. Have a good week, everybody. Thank you for listening. You're all fabulous.